Okay. So first up is Isaac. I can't say his last name. I'm scared to say his last name. I'm gonna say it wrong. But Isaac here. Whoop. There we go. Let me just drop me down here. I'll just shrink myself and just get a little low here. Hello. Um, yes, Isaac wants to be or is a junior 3D props artist. I say is because I don't see student here, which to me I'm totally okay with. If you want to argue those semantics, I think I don't we're students forever, man. That's kind of how I look at things. So, um let me just get Notion and white theme. Oh god. Flashbang. Um yeah, Isaac props artist. And you've got two environments here as well. I know you're Bocquet. Is it Bocquet? Is that what Casey's saying? Does that mean I have to pay for school forever? Yes, with your free time. You have to pay with your own time. Think about it like that, which makes it that's a little dark. But so let's see here. So right off the bat, I mean, this is a year ago, so we won't critique on this one too much. Modeling wise, looks pretty cool. You have some good understanding of shape and form when you're creating these shapes. There is some areas where it becomes a little low, considering how dense this is. This is, of course, not like a game-ready asset, but it was your first hard surface model using Maya, Substance Painter, or Marmoset. Of course, a year ago. But when we look at this, some of the things that I would take away from this asset is there are certain areas where you've got the fidelity, and then other areas where it's quite a bit lower. Yeah, for a first hard surface, this is quite good, especially since you're dealing with spherical shapes and then creating these types of shapes out of them. So some stuff I would look at when you're designing things like this or building stuff like this is the tension point here, how close everything is in this area here. You got to be real careful for that. What I mean by that is this becomes a tangent that you end up looking at quite closely. Yeah, curved surfaces are hard to work with. So like this big bolt area piece here, I would likely shrink that a little bit, maybe like 5%, just to give you a little bit more area to breathe in there. It just makes materials look not so thin and stuff looks structurally a bit stronger. There's other parts like this bottom piece here feels like it's still the block out. Same with the foot or the bottom of the leg where you would imagine a foot to be. And just like I was mentioning, the poly count here was a little low. You can see how you've got a nice bevel here, but then a quite a sharp edge here. When you're working with these types of shapes, it's always good to have a nice you can see in the bevel, you get the light to wrap around it just a little bit. Getting that everywhere is pretty nice. It tends to look really good. So like if it's like more pleasant to the eye, and you can see it especially when you look here, where like areas just don't have the attention like some of the other spots do. The other thing I would comment on was the Substance Painter pass. This looks like there is some roughness in there, and it's kind of, well, I guess it's marmoset, so it's a gloss pass. Just getting some like starting with smart masks and kind of separating out your materials. I should probably do a video on like the methodology I think of when I think of layering materials and how you mask between them. But you want to think of every material as its own attribute, where it's got its own albedo, its own roughness, its own surface details, and then you expose each of those layers based on masks. And then also bringing in your own layer on top of that at the very end, like on the very, very top as like dust or dirt pass. using like custom masks and stamps and stuff like that. Same goes for like if you've got paint chipping, you're going to want to get quite a bit of character and logic around the way that those are separating themselves. But yeah, I feel like I'm spending a lot of time on this piece. So let's hop forward here. So we got the Hollow Knight. This is actually looks really cool, and the way it's so simple, it looks like it should be on a desk. I don't have too much to comment on with this because it's more of like a fan piece, and it's presented really well. Maybe this curve could be more machined in the way that like it needs to feel more like a curve. I guess I don't know. Let me see if I can. Give me 1 second here, and we'll see if I can. I want to make sure the right Miro opens. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, this is gonna be a little bright, but you can see here this curve. This is one of the things I've been using in Miro lately, is just drawing a line and giving it a color, really nice, good thickness here, and then just kind of like using it kind of like it's got a spline to it, you know. So when you look at these types of shapes, you want to make sure that you're getting a nice curve to it. I guess you could maybe do it like, and so like right now I kind of feel like it doesn't have that curve where it kind of flows. So and it's mainly here where it kind of comes back in. Dude, Miro, I use it like crazy. I use it at work a lot now too. So it definitely a must have. Um, Polygon can attest. I do critiques and feedback through it as well for my mentorships. You can even do it on the iPad. Super nice. So we won't spend too much time on that. We look at the Cyberpunk scene here. I think I've actually reviewed this one before. Maybe as like a Discord critique. So right off the bat, looking out the window, you did a very good job integrating a scene in the background that kind of implies that you're part of this environment. And yeah, I mean when you look at those details and the colors that are there, you kind of expect that color palette to be kind of integrated into the rest of the scene. That is an art like a rocket. That's pretty serious. Oh, there's a concept with this as well. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, this is really interesting with the integration of like cooling and whatnot. So there's certain aspects of your scene that I feel like are missing the elements. Like you've got the vent here. Let's just maybe I can do this. Let's go into Miro again here, and then we'll grab these two. Oh, did I just not copy the right? Let's see. Let's see. All right, cool. Yeah, so there's certain aspects that, of course, kind of break down as we're looking at the concept versus the final 3D product. Um, the screen, of course, you wanted your the blue screen of death, but let's focus on some of the smaller details. So if I copy this, so we've got this this vent thing here, this air fan unit thingamabob. That's really handy for giving you that depth. And if you were to go that far and actually cut that in and model the blades and stuff, you're going to get a whole lot more out of this shape, because right now it feels essentially like a cube, right? And if you look up here, like this feels like a cube as well, but there's elements of it that are added to it to kind of break up the shape of it. And I feel like with yours, like you can tell that this is beveled. Usually a corner like that is machine wise isn't a good idea, and you can see like even here it comes out and then drops and then comes back up and then goes out this way before rounding the corner. Getting these to have different roughness values, which I think you had done as well. It's more about possibly the execution of the materials as well, and understanding like, okay, this surface detail and holding up to the same kind of fidelity as this one. Like if we copy this and bring this down here, if we're looking at that, right, this looks pretty smooth. I mean, it is a little blurry, so you have to like keep that type of information in mind. But like these little extra text and the lines and stuff help you understand how what the surface is made out of, how it's put together. Getting a bevel on here to try and get a little bit further away from the geometry look, and then these decals to just float on top of the mesh. Like having the posters back here, that's great. I think I'm actually going to just copy this. Let me see if this will work. If you double click these, you can actually crop as you go, and then if you click away, you have your little crop piece. And then if you double click it again, you can kind of go back and look at details. So there's a handful of things with like scale and understanding like, okay, the size of that cup and the size of the couch. And seeing the size of your couch, the size of cup, size of books, looking at those and really trying to break down how those things are all scaled and bringing a similar quality of execution on every prop that's in the scene. This is why making environments is so difficult sometimes. Is you have that the need to, or the quality required for every piece, you know what I mean? And that can become quite tedious and tiring. If we focus at like the this area, you took the liberty of cutting this in like in this direction, and I think that's totally fine. This looks fine. It does match some of the style, so that's cool. And the way the lighting is in it is pretty interesting. The bottles look pretty good. But the attention to other details like posters and just bringing things in that help you understand the scale and size of things is really important. And just like executing on these props to make sure that they have the right kind of scale and weight to them. Like it doesn't have to be exactly like the concept, right? That's totally okay. But it's more about the scale of the scene and understanding where, like if the size of this matches, monitors look pretty close. It's like maybe the height of the table could be adjusted. There's no wheels on this. There's wheels on yours. That's fine. I just noticed there's a paper under the table. That's difficult for that to get there. Ollie is concerned about liquids above the computer. I mean, that could be why it got cleaned up, but that could be why there was a blue screen. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's just all these little details and really understanding the material surfaces behind like what you're building is going to be key when it comes to implying surface types and how they read to lighting. But hopefully that is useful. Let me go back to your where are we at here? Your portfolio. Oh yeah, maybe we should scroll down through this as well. And then there's a lot of geometry that's just like all these edges. You don't need much of that at all. Like by insetting this and then adding your little bevels here, you could clean that all up into a few triangles and then terminate at just a single edge to each corner. And there's just a lot of extra geometry for how this is set up. And I don't know if this is intended to be rendered using Arnold, so it's not intended to be real time. So, But storytelling in the environment is super, super important. And any extra details you can add to like really turn it up. It almost feels like when you add these types of details that you should just go overboard. Like if you want sticky notes or posters behind the computer, add like 30 sticky notes. Like posters galore. Just go crazy. Because you can always scale that stuff back. And maybe it brings in some character and weight that you can use and kind of build upon, to just draw the viewer's eye to certain areas. But yeah, right now I feel like your modeling is lacking the fidelity and the understanding, and then your materials are, I wouldn't say they're behind. You're just not up to speed yet, if that makes sense. Your materials, it's hard to understand what they're supposed to be. You want to check your roughness values and the detail of the noise that's on the surface. See, in this view, it looks better. Hey Melissa, how you doing? It looks better. So my idea or my thoughts are that it's material work, and in some cases the modeling, or just not pushing the scene further than it could be. But yeah, let's keep moving forward here. So this one's also 8 months ago. Again, a little higher poly, rendered in Arnold. And this one looks like you're playing with masks a little bit more in Substance Painter. They just don't seem to have as much of the logic behind them as you would expect. You want to make sure that where this damage is happening, or the wear and tear of the paint, is affecting in the areas that you would expect it to happen, and the shapes that are happening in those masks make sense. The other thing too is this exposed metal and this is paint? And if that's the case, the roughness value between these two is likely different. If it isn't, that's fine. But stylistically or visually, it's going to be more interesting or next-gen-y looking, if you want to call it that, or current, if you've got some differences in the roughness. Like this area looks like it's some type of like a plastic or a rubber, and I'm not sure where it's metal and where it's paint, right? And understanding that this is a lens, so maybe getting that quite reflective, next gen-y looking. You like that, Eric? Every once in a while, say something wrong. Chat just cuts deep. They cut deep. But this one's 6 months ago. Who was the previous Jenny? Another Jenny. That's how it works, Casey. You guys are spelling Jenny wrong. It's Geny. But this is looking a little bit more real time. I don't know if it's render. This time I've been working hard on the entire game asset workflow. Here we go. We got the triangles. Yeah, triangle count is there. Showing a wireframe is always really good. Where you get this looks pretty good. By comparison of your previous stuff, this is looking better. The pattern on the tire doesn't really match like the pattern that you see on tires very much usually. If it is going to be this pattern, I just beveling that edge quite a bit is going to help. Your UV space is used all right. There's some areas where I'm like wondering if maybe the way some of the tire is modeled, and if this was beveled, this would be a whole strip, right? You would likely map the tire to a single texture, going around the side, and then have this as its own texture as well, or UV it. Yeah, but the modeling here is definitely a big improvement from your previous stuff. And you're using the nice thing about what you're doing back here is you're working a lot with like sub D or higher res geometry. So then when you started transitioning into like trying to go into the game asset direction or game asset workflow, you already have probably more control over your mesh than you did when you started making the low poly stuff, right? So not only are you able to control your geometry better, but when you make your low poly and baking is just going to be better. I actually strongly suggest that when someone is getting into 3D, you don't have to dive into like game ready assets immediately, and it should be more about like being able to recreate the shapes, the details. The wires side by side I think are in here. Let's see. Yeah, so we've got the low poly versus the high poly. There's some details in here where I'm like, oh, did you use? Is this ZBrush here? It kind of looks like some ZBrush happened. Yeah, there's some ZBrush in there. So you're using the technique where you either model the shapes and then move them into ZBrush, or you start the shapes in ZBrush and then do the Boolean workflow and then ding it up a little bit, and then you've built your low poly to match. So that's really cool. Your low poly, so it's sitting at 5,000 triangles. I think for an asset like this, totally okay to go into like the 7 or 8,000 range, just to get the fidelity where it matters. And when I say where it matters, it's in the silhouette, right? You've done pretty well with the pipes or the tubing around this metal frame, like protective framing. It gets a little low on this edge here, and then the tires are quite low. So keeping an eye on those details is going to be important. The fidelity of the smaller stuff here makes sense, and like just it's great the stuff that you have put geometry into, because those are the things that are going to give you that silhouette gain. That ZBrush polish, the unmistakable Decimation Master high poly look. I'm feeling it. Now, the things that I want to point out that we can all get better at when it comes to props like this is the presentation and the way you're doing your material work. So we looked at the modeling. There's some issues with the modeling, like I was mentioning with the tire. The materials look better, as in you've got differences in the separation between materials. You've got metallic or metalness values versus like more rougher, rubbery or plastic looking materials, and then like metal painted over, and then decals, right? So these in real life called decals, they're actually part of the texture. Now you can see you're doing a 4096 by 2048. I would say 99% of the time you're going to want this to just be straight up square. So if it's going to be a 4096, just make it a 4096 across. My dad's about to play World of Warcraft here. Let me get out of that. But yeah. Now that's really high res. That's super high res. Just so that it's really clear. An asset like this for like a third person game will likely get a maximum of a 1024 maximum. It's likely going to be a 512, but maybe a 1024, maybe. What you want to do is take things like these decals and possibly float them on a quad cut out, right? And then have them floating on top. And the reason I say have this low but still make it look good is you should be able to make it look just like this at a 512, and all these little micro details in the normal map, save that for detail normals. Save that information for detail normals, and I think you will end up getting an asset that looks really good. If you watch some of the streams or you're on the Patreon and you've got access to the VODs or some of the VODs on Twitch, we've dived pretty deep into detail normals, and detail normal masks are just going to push the fidelity in the information further. Still, I would say you need to be looking at your roughness values and understand what roughness value you go for when you're trying to imitate this material versus this material, and where the wear and tear happens, the damage and the aging. Decals are going to have a different roughness value usually than the paint, and the variety of roughness on each individual material is going to vary depending on like what is happening to the surface of that material. But yeah, like Polygon saying in chat, the roughness overall is quite uniform. I don't think there's a roughness view in here, is there? Yeah, there's not. Because like you want to get that variety where the plastic or the paint looks different from the metal, looks different from the rubber. Those are going to have completely different values. Also, the battery looks a little on the low poly side. But let's keep moving because we've got this scene here. So, personal project made following the Unreal Engine 5 beginner project from Unreal Sensei. Dude, awesome. This is cool. So you're just, it looks like you're using, oh nice, you made a video as well. So mega scans. So my view on this one is this is really cool because it's just allowing you to think compositionally and work with a beginner project and just think about building the spaces, right? You're not worried about how do I make this tree, how do I model these branches, and how do I build this house. So that's super cool. I think when I click on this, it is quite blurry, and I would suggest in Unreal to just upscale or output higher res images and then scale them down in Photoshop. So if you're going to get like a 2K image, you're going to want to scale it down from a 4K image, for example. But let's see what's going on here. I'm going to mute this just in case. So in these videos, ooh, this video looks pretty nice. In this video, you can see the video starts not moving and then starts to move. I would just cut off the part where it's waiting to move and then starts and just have it already moving. It's a good rule of thumb with cutscenes. The movement of the camera is pretty nice. You're not trying to look at multiple subjects with one movement. Yeah, all assets are free from Megascans, so it's this is more of like a steady. Ooh, look at that movement too. So you've got the micro movement, but the macro movement is like getting the trees to sway and the mountain in the background feeling further away using a distance fog, or just getting these elements to separate is going to be key for this type of stuff. But if you're shooting to be like a props artist, I would go and look at the Megascan assets, look at their roughness. Like just go into Unreal and look at the roughness values and see where those are at. That'll answer so much information, or like answer so many questions for you and give you all that information. Yeah, Martin in chat says as well, I'll just verbally say it just in case. If the scene is blurry, you could also create a post-process material, which's purpose is to sharpen the whole scene up, or add a high-pass filter in Photoshop. But yeah, if you can find stuff on ArtStation, anyone's work, and you can just look at their roughness and see how they're doing what they're doing. Turn up the graphics. But to me, it feels like the growth that's happened between your Mechagon and your portable generator is a huge leap in the quality of your modeling and game ready, and then texturing, right? But make sure to keep pushing that, because you can add more geometry, and that's okay. And you can look at your materials and understand those values. Don't hesitate to just keep pushing that fidelity, and remember that detail normals are going to help you immensely. Also, the way you're using your UVs, whenever you can overlap UVs and share information, you're going to increase the resolution of your bakes. So just remember, if you do that tire once, you don't have to bake it twice in here. You can just do the one tire and dupe the UVs on top of itself, or dupe the tire afterwards and move it to the other side. But yeah, I think with some more modeling time, and especially materials, you'll go really far with just working on those two things. There's one other thing I should say. When you added this scene in here, it's cool that you've done this and you expanded your knowledge in like just building a scene. Definitely look at the roughness and the assets that are in here. I expect them to be pretty rough just because of how natural they are. But I'll be curious to see if you're still interested in being a props artist as you're starting to build environments again, or at least you've built this one out. Maybe it's just an exercise. But nice stuff and nice progress. I think once you've did this leap from here to here and do it again, you'll be in a real good spot. How long ago is this one? Yeah, this one's 6 months ago. I expect you're already better than this if you're continuing to work on your craft. But yeah, let's. I think that's it for me. Thanks again, Isaac, and hello in chat because I know you're in chat.